The annual Orange County Community Indicators Report has served as a highly anticipated and critical tool for assessing key issues facing the nation's sixth largest county for many years. We're honored to be hosting today's event in collaboration with our dear friends with the Orange County Business Council, and we thank them for helping us put together today's panel of experienced, visionary Orange County leaders. And I'm also thrilled that my dear friend Rick Reiff is in the house. Rick, I know you're here somewhere. He is going to serve as today's moderator. But before we get to all of those folks, please allow me to make a few introductions and acknowledgments. First, please join me in thanking our title sponsor for the last 3 years, UCI and UCI Health. Here we are. All right, today's event sponsor is Bank of America. Let's thank them for their support in today's event. Today's premium sponsors are the Orange County Community Foundation and Orange County United Way. Let's thank them for their involvement. Always great to have Sue in the house. Great to see you. There you are. Thank you for being here. And of course, I want to thank all of OC Forum's ongoing sponsors. Their generous support allows all of us to continue to bring these programs to all of you. I'm very fortunate to lead a very engaged, thoughtful, and active board of directors. And at this time, it's always their favorite time of these luncheons. I'm going to ask all of my fellow board members to please stand to be recognized. All right, OC Forum board members, please stand. There they are. Thank you all for being the gas that makes this engine go. I also want to thank all of the elected officials and staffers that have taken time out of their busy schedules to join us today. Would all elected officials and their staffers please stand and let us thank you with a round of applause? Elected officials, there we go. And of course, it's great to have all of you with us here in attendance. Before I introduce our next speaker, we have a short video to show you from our event sponsor, Bank of America. So at this time, please turn your attention to the screens.
My name is Josh Shinagawa, and I'm the owner at Isla Veterinary Boutique Hospital. I was 5-6 years of age, and I knew I was going to be a vet. Once Alexandra called me to let me know that Bank of America had approved my loan, it was important to me.
We not only just provide the financing piece, we do everything that we can to surround them with the right people.
All you need is a perfect, amazing team that will guide you through the right steps to be successful. And that's what Bank of America was for me.
Outstanding. Thank you again, Bank of America, for sponsoring today's event. Well, now it's time for our program. Please continue to enjoy your lunch as I introduce our first guest speaker. Finishing up his second year as the president and CEO of the Orange County Business Council, Jeffrey Ball is the founder of Friendly Hills Bank in Whittier, where he previously served as president and chief executive officer. His more than 25 years of experience in commercial and investment banking includes leadership positions with Bank of America, as well as past chair of the California Bankers Association. Please join me in giving a very warm OC Forum welcome to Mr. Jeff Ball.
Thank you, John. We won't ruin it for you. John, you left the mic down a little low. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Please enjoy your lunch as we get started today. Wonderful to have all of you with us. I want to thank the board at OC Forum that we've had this opportunity to work with, come up with a new idea, different way to release our community indicators report, and we're very excited for what you're about to hear today. I want to thank our sponsors that helped in making the report you're about to hear possible. Our title sponsor was Experian, so please give a hand to Experian. Also Cafe Bank, and also Kaiser Permanente. So thank you to those sponsors. I also want to thank our partners in producing the report, CalOptima Health. I don't know if Michael's here, I don't see him. First Five, Orange County. Orange County Community Foundation. And yes, Sue Parks, Orange County United Way. Great to see you, Sue. So we've got some real interesting stuff forthcoming, and to present that is our fabulous Chief Economic Advisor for the Orange County Business Council. He's one of our newer employees. He's only been with us since 1997. But Dr. Walrod has provided great leadership for research in Orange County, and it has been an absolute pleasure of mine to have known Wallace and worked with him for many different years in the different capacities that I've worked in Orange County, and especially now as colleagues, as true colleagues. We're having a great time working together, bringing the type of information that you need to successfully run your businesses and organizations, and you're going to get a good taste of that today. Dr. Walrod is a lead economic advisor as well to the Southern California Association of Governments Economic Strategy Initiative, and is also a chief economic advisor to the Draper Hero Institute, which the Draper Index, very interesting thing for you to follow if you're not aware of that yet. Dr. Walrod earned his PhD in regional economics from the University of California, Irvine. An anteater. We won't go into the other degrees. But his dissertation focused on successful strategic management practices in high-tech firms, including advanced electronics and biotech. But today, he's going to show us everything we need to know about Orange County. So please join me in welcoming my good friend and colleague, Dr. Wallace Walrod.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Jeff, I thought you were going to keep that short, and I have to move the microphone down myself. Let me get my computer fired up here. I think, so this is the 24th year of the community indicators. Next year is going to be 25 years. And I think one of the coolest things about today is I haven't seen Mike Ruane. I saw Mike on the guest list. Is Mike here? He's not here. Okay. So if Mike was here, there would be basically the 4 people who sat together in a room in 1999 and came up with this idea about the community indicators. So Lisa Burke and Kathleen Freed are here today, and it's such an honor to have them here when they were here at the start. I also want to echo what Jeff said about thanking our report sponsors, First 50C, the OC Community Foundation, United Way of Orange County, and Cal Optima. Okay, so one thing I do want you to keep in mind when we look at the slides, and there are a lot of slides, so I'm going to go very quickly, just to give a whole overview of the report, is how much COVID really impacted us and how we're still kind of dealing with many things that happened because of COVID. So first of all, we do a profile, so comparing ourselves over time and to other geographic regions. So we compared to our neighbors, all our surrounding neighbors, the state of California. So here at a very high level are the things that kind of are the big parts of the, oh, went the wrong way. The big part of what's happened in the last year. So as you can see, our population continues to decline. If you would have told me when we started this back in 1999 that we'd have declining population for 3 straight years, I would have said you're crazy. But it echoes trends throughout the state. So California, we've lost about 15,000 from 2022 to 23. The state has lost 600,000 since 2020. We'll talk more about this. UCI took this spot for a couple of years during COVID, but Disney has retaken as the top employer. We did add 45,000 jobs in the last 12 months, but our unemployment rate went up. How does that happen? We have many more people coming back into the labor force as the economy continues to improve. Our gross product increased 3.2%, very healthy. We were in a multi-year drought, and the rains earlier this year really took care of that. The median home price has fallen slightly, but you'll see that actually affordability has gotten worse. And then our crime index did rise, but it still remains below the state and nation. So one of the things that we've seen, we track job postings, And we really had this bump during COVID of people posting, new openings. That's actually declined in the last year. So it is a little bit of a sign of a cooling labor market. In fact, we're back below where we were entering COVID. And that probably has a lot to do with the increasing unemployment rate as well. Sorry. So there you can see the trends. We've fallen about 36% in the last year. Once again, we are 3 straight years. We lost 20,000 between 2020 and 2021, 16,000 between 21 and 22, and 15,000 between 22 and 23. Once again, California lost 600,000. We are very densely populated, but because our population is declining, we're not as densely populated as we were. But we are becoming, we're aging and becoming more diverse. Okay, here's really a quick comparison to what's going on versus neighbors. We have the highest income in the region and compared to the state. We are also the oldest, and part of that is because, as we'll see in a little bit, our young people are, there's not as many young people. Poverty level is the lowest. We have the second best commute time, and we also have the second most foreign-born population. So here's the demographic change. We've already started to become more diverse over the last 2 or 3 decades. That's projected to continue, and very soon our Latino or Hispanic population is going to be the top population in Orange County. And then this is what I was talking about in terms of demographic change. Over the next several decades, 65 plus is going to become the #1 population group in Orange County. And we're losing people under 20, basically, as a percentage of the population. As we lose those 25 to 44-year-olds right now, we're losing the kids because they're moving out of Orange County because of housing prices for the most part. We're losing the kids that they would have here. And so that's why we have declining K through 12 enrollment. So that's a quick hit on the profile. In terms of the economy, lots of trends going on. In general, it's a bright spot. As I said, Disney retook its place as the county's largest employer. We now have 4 employers over 10,000 and 10 over 1,000, and the number 10 over 5,000. And in the last year, we increased from 62 to 67 the number of businesses that employ over 1,000. And then you can see the number of women-owned businesses is actually growing quite quickly as well. On the Orange County Business Expectation Index, Jeff and I were talking about this earlier. Orange County executives, this is done by Cal State Fullerton, are generally optimistic about the economy going forward. Office vacancy rates have ticked up a little bit, but not nearly as much as San Francisco and LA. And then in the last bullet, you can see John Wayne is back to real growth coming out of the pandemic. This is that Business Expectations Index. You can see when COVID first hit, we were down. Anything over 50 means executives are optimistic. You can see here that it fell very quickly, but recovered very quickly during COVID, and we're still in the positive trend. Orange County's, it's an expensive place, but we have good wage growth. We are 18% above the state median, 44% above the national median. Wealthy households are increasing, and our poverty rate is up a little bit, but I think we're going to be making progress on that. Now, the thing that's really driving a lot of things in Orange County is housing. And so we spend a fair bit of time, and also the special feature in the report this year is on housing and challenges with affordable housing. So you can see here, even though the price has declined, because of mortgage rates, affordability has declined as well. So only 22% of first-time home buyers can afford a house. And that's even though this is the entry-level price of a house in Orange County fell from 1.07 to 1.02, basically. That's quite an entry-level house. The income needed to qualify, though, went up because of mortgage rates from 157 to 192. So those entry-level houses are getting more out of people's reach, and that's also going on in the rental market. So one thing, just to go back, so the average mortgage payment went from $2,245 on a $500,000 loan in 2022 to almost $3,500 in 2023. It's expensive to be a renter here too. The hourly housing wage is $40 an hour to afford a one-bedroom apartment, and because that's not our some of the lower paying jobs, the average person has to work 105 hours a week to afford the average one-bedroom house here. And because of all these trends, actually home ownership rates have fallen in the last year. So here's the first-time buyer affordability index. We are actually less affordable than San Francisco at this point because it takes into account income and housing costs. What does our built environment look like? We actually look quite a bit like Santa Clara, like San Diego, and almost like LA. And then we have sort of San Francisco on one extreme with much more attached product, and then the Inland Empire with much more single families. So in terms of housing demographics, here is a chart that shows number of housing units occupied by ethnicity, and then whether those are owner-occupied or renter-occupied. And you can see that there is a lot of diversity and disparity there in terms of those outcomes. We're just not building enough new housing units, and even though the state is trying to emphasize with legislation new housing, we just haven't made that much progress. In 2022, we actually had the lowest that we've had in about 10 years in terms of building permits. Oh, sorry. Okay. So here's, once again, is that median home price, and that's more than double what it was 10 years ago. So it really has become difficult for people to afford. So now we move to education in general. Good trends. We have rising graduation rates. Just at a high level, we have a very skilled, talented workforce. That moved from 41% in 2019 up to 43.1% in 2021. Our graduation rate increased. Hispanic, Latino, and Pacific Islander students saw the largest improvements. The dropout rate did increase slightly on a yearly basis, but it remains well below the state average. And then the graduation rate gap between students who are and are not socioeconomically disadvantaged shrank from 8.4 to 5.5. So here are graduation rates by ethnicity. Most ethnic groups have made significant progress here. And here is that socioeconomic status. The gap is narrowing, which is fantastic news for Orange County. We are seeing in this data set, you can see that there's a bar missing there. In 2020, we did not do testing because of COVID. 2021, the numbers are a little bit skewed, I guess, because of COVID. So you can really compare 2019 and 2022. And in terms of that, we are seeing a little bit of decline in English language arts. And we are seeing the same in mathematics, unfortunately. So those children who are going through K through 12 right now, we have some work to do with them. Here is the percentage of high school graduates eligible for UC and CSU. It's a good measure of college prep. And this is at 57% right now. It's increased every year for the last 20 years. When I started doing this, it was about 35, so it's 57% now, but we still have a lot of disparities amongst ethnic groups. And then finally, we're growing STEM-related degrees, but we seem to have plateaued a little bit. We grew about 4% in the last year. It's about 15,000 degrees per year, but with the amount of STEM jobs being produced in the economy, I think we need to encourage students to go into STEM and STEAM educational pathways much more. So health and healthcare. Some very interesting data. Here's the percent of uninsured. This is people self-reporting by income group saying they are uninsured. So under 50,000, that's actually growing. In terms of educational attainment, it's less than high school grad, so that goes along with the income profile we just saw. And then finally, by age group, unfortunately, it's the 19 to 25-year-olds that are reporting not having insurance much more than any other age group. Sorry. So death rate in general from chronic disease has declined. Mental health and substance abuse, however, those are going in the wrong direction. And the largest occurrence of both of those actually occurred in adults over 65 and children and youth, so some somewhat alarming trends. And opioids have been a real terrible trend growing as a problem in Orange County. So here is the bottom line showing youth overall mental health and substance use growing in terms of their hospitalizations. And then here's the opioid growth, which there's some, I mean, you can just look at the trends there. This is another one. The last couple are where COVID impacted education, and COVID impacted this for sure. So the last section is on infrastructure. I know I'm going very quickly. There's a lot in the report to cover. But we had actually some good news in that, we have an excellent infrastructure system in Orange County. We're known for that. We're known for a great transportation agency. We're known for our water districts and sanitation districts. When you come from LA County, you can tell when you hit Orange County and you get a big smile on your face, right? We have been through a drought, as I mentioned, and that's obviously been something that turned around earlier this year. And so work from home, we'll see how long this trend continues, but work from home had a great increase. I just saw some national numbers. It looks like between 26 and 30% of people now at least work from home a couple days a week. Traffic congestion is on its way up as we've recovered from COVID. And we have 180,000 more workers commuting into Orange County than the opposite. So from every surrounding county, including LA County, more people are commuting into work in Orange County than commuting out. Water conservation, the snowpack hit a record level earlier this year. In Orange County, we're being very frugal with our water. It's fallen from 114 in 2021 gallons per day per capita to 108 in 2022, and then to 96 in 2023. And that water conservation has really helped our water supply. So here's that on this chart. You can see over time, we basically fallen 50% in the last 10 years. And then lastly, it does vary quite a bit by water district. We have some water districts, Garden Grove is the one that uses the least amount, and then we have East Orange County Water District using the most. We are a little bit above the California state average in terms of our usage, and most districts are actively looking at water conservation. So with that, that was a quick preview of the report. And now we're going to hear from our great panel. And if you have any questions, I will come back up when the Q&A starts. But to lead our panel, I want to introduce my old friend, Rick Reiff. Rick is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, editor-at-large of the Orange County Business Journal, host and producer of public affairs programs, and recipient of the Orange County Press Club's Lifetime Achievement Award. He's covered Southern California for 33 years in print and on air. So you're in good hands with Rick as our moderator panel. Thank you, Wallace.
I don't know, that makes me even older than you, right, Wallace? Hi, everybody. Well, Wallace, thanks as always for your brutally honest, uplifting report. If I gather from this, we're getting old, we're losing population, we can't afford our homes, and the kids are doing worse in school. Other than that, things are great. Thank you very much. Okay. But anyway, with our great panel that's lined up, I will introduce them one by one, and as I give a short bio, just come on up. And let's take off these things too so that the photographs look better. Okay. So first up, Nate Shinagawa. Nate is the COO at UCI Health. He has 13 years in hospital leadership, and before that, 10 years as a county legislator representing Ithaca, New York. You see New York, he's an Ivy Leaguer. He got his undergrad and his master's in health administration from Cornell. Welcome, Nate. Gregory Scott. Gregory is the CEO of Community Action Partnership of Orange County. It's a network focused on fighting poverty and inequality and promoting families, education, and community development. Mr. Scott is also an executive coach and a public speaker. Welcome. Taryn Palumbo. Taryn is Executive Director of Orange County Grantmakers, a regional association of philanthropic funders. Before moving back home here to OC, she spent 4 years as an executive at the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, so you have an interesting perspective. And applaud once more because she has a law degree from Chapman University. Okay. And finally, a man who since Wallace already extensively gave his bio, you all know him. You look like an ultimate fighter, man. I'll tell you, Jeffrey Ball, CEO of the Orange County Business Council. Thank you. Okay, so very quickly, I'd like to have each of you, we'll maybe just start with, start here and just, go around. And I'd like to ask each of you your thoughts on what you've just seen and heard in this presentation. And if you want to briefly tell us, except Jeffrey, you don't have to tell us about your group, but tell us what UCI Health is all about.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you, Rick. So let me tell you a little bit about UCI Health first. Many of you are familiar, of course, with UCI. But UCI Health is the health enterprise of the University of California system, and we are University of California Irvine system, and we are a $2.5 billion operation, about 8,500 employees. We have 27 clinics and a hospital in Orange, and we are very excited to be opening up a brand new hospital off Jamboree Road here in Irvine, Newport Beach. So in terms of just my thoughts, looking at the Community Health Indicators report, it made me think, actually, just a few weeks ago, I hosted a bunch of the post-acute services, so a lot of your rehab hospitals, home health, over at UCI. And one of the things that I said to them is how, when I think about all of our services, and I feel the same way as I listened to this report about housing and economic indicators and education and so much more, is it makes me think about how, when I was a kid, I grew up in Northern California, and we were very close to the redwood forest, right? And when you think of the sequoia trees of the redwood forest, one of the things that you learn is that they actually don't have very deep roots. What's interesting about sequoia trees is they have shallow roots, but their roots, they spread out, and they connect with the roots of other sequoia trees. And that's why they're able to grow so tall, so they can live for so long. And really, when you think of it, I love that analogy, because I think about the healthcare that we provide, but also I think about housing security, economic security, and so much more. And so I'm really looking forward to this discussion, because I think that as we talk about each of our areas, the interconnectedness is going to be so key.
So let's just start. I would like you to start and give us your impression of what you just heard from your perspective. What's the state of Orange County?
Yeah, so I think, I guess I'll take the healthcare aspect of it. I think that a few things stand out for me. First, the aging population, right? So we can see, even though we have that the stagnant or decline in population growth, the over 65 population is dramatically growing. And so we need to make sure that we have the services there for that population. But what's great is that we live in kind of I hear people say it all the time, the healthcare mecca of California, and that's truly the case. When you look at just the investment that's happening, not just from UCI Health, but by Hoag and the good campus in Irvine, City of Hope with their new expansion into the Irvine area as well. You know, you have premier healthcare institutions that are here. City of Hope, you know, their main campus is NCI designated. We're NCI designated as well. That's top 1% of healthcare cancer institutes in the country. And both of them are here in Orange County, right? So just tremendous. So I think that's something that I really took away from. But then the other part that's on the, I think, really striking side is the behavioral health, mental health, and opioid addiction side of things. And certainly, we're doing a lot on that front, and I'd be happy to get into it in a little more detail. But one that I really want to point out is that, you know, when you look at the substance abuse crisis, addiction, and just mental health overall, something that a lot of people don't recognize is that most people actually get their prescriptions for antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications. They actually get it from their primary care doctor, not from a psychiatrist. And in fact, 16% of primary care visits are actually related to mental health. And so when you think of it that way, one of the things that we've done is we've invested heavily. We actually have a program, it's called Train the Trainers. But what we do is we actually have a certification program for primary care doctors where they actually are trained by psychiatrists to be able to diagnose mental health conditions and appropriately prescribe. And I think that's just one way that we can help address some of these questions.
Thank you. Cool. Got it. I thought it'd be better if I just sat down. Okay, Gregory, tell us a little bit about your group and what you do, and give us your impressions. You have, I would imagine, a different perspective on what's happening.
Thank you. Again, my name is Gregory Scott. I'm the CEO of Community Action Partners for Orange County. Capital C was really born out of the war on poverty. So we've been around over 55 years. Our mission is really about poverty. We're part of a national network of community action agencies across the country. It's about 1,000 across the country. And again, our focus is really around poverty. Our organization does two things. We also run the Orange County Food Bank. But our organization does two things. We really focus on helping families and individuals who are dealing with crisis. So we do that through food insecurity through our Orange County Food Bank. We do that through helping families who are struggling paying utility assistance, any type of crisis management. Our mission is really about helping those and being there for those who need us when they need us. The second part, or the opposite side of that coin, is really more long-term development. And so around community development. So we have a whole family approach to the work that we're doing. We have 3 family resource centers. We're doing financial empowerment. We are doing after-school program. We have a STEAM program. We have multiple programs that's more long-term. And it's really about helping the whole family. And so part of that is really looking at, we know there's not one thing that's going to help people get out of poverty. So that's our mission. In terms of my impressions of the report, I kind of looked at it. I'm from the East Coast, so I'm from Jersey. I worked in New York City. I've worked in Boston. I've worked in LA. And now here in Orange County. And when I look at the report, 2 things stick out to me. One is that Orange County matters. It's big enough to matter. So it's the 6th largest county in the country, so it matters. But it's also small enough where we can make a material difference in the lives of people that we serve. And so when I think about LA, I remember working on Skid Row. I was a CEO of an organization that was helping the homeless. The problem is so big that you feel like you're not really making a dent. And now when I look at it, it's been 20 years now, the problem is worse now than it was before. And so when you look at places like New York City or even Boston or even Chicago around the country, you can see that sometimes it feels like the weight of the problem is so large that you can't make a difference. I believe that Orange County and Greene County, again, it's big enough to matter. What happens in Orange County probably happens across the country. I think we are leaders in that, from that perspective. But also at the same time, it's still small enough where we can really make a difference. Whether it's housing, whether it's homelessness, whether it's workforce development across the board. The challenge with it, as I looked at the report too, is it scared me. Because it was almost like looking at, I recently got a physical. And when I got this physical, as I do every single year, on page 1, I'm in range. Page 2, I'm in range. I get to page 3, and it's highlighted with red. And I'm like, hold up, what does that mean? Now, I can ignore it because page 1 and page 2 is good. And I can ignore page 3, but like if I ignore it when I come back next year, I'm gonna have more red signs. We can ignore what's going on in our county because for the most part, good economy, people making good money, over 6 figures, all those things are happening. But behind the data is a story, and behind the story is a human being, and behind those human beings, there's the underbelly of what's really going on. Just because you are employed doesn't mean you're not food secure. Just because you're employed doesn't mean you have money to save for a house. So my fear is that there are people who, especially in terms of the people that I serve, that our organization serves, in their lifetime, if things continue to go the way they are, in their lifetime, they would never be able to own a home.
Thank you, Gregory. And I think the comments, housing and homelessness, I think is something we may get back to. And so get your views on that. Well, I am going to take it away from you for a moment, please. Taryn, why don't you tell us what your group is and what do you make of what you just heard?
Yes, so Orange County Grantmakers is the regional philanthropic serving organization for Orange County, and that sounds like a mouthful. The first thing to clarify is we don't actually make grants, which is very confusing since our name is Grantmakers. What we do, however, is we provide a space for those who are in the philanthropic sector to come together, to learn, and to share best practices. Our real job and our role in the community is to convene. That is our power. We are a place where funders can identify the opportunities and the strategies for investment, to talk with one another, and to kind of go beneath the surface on issues and data points like what's brought up in the Community Indicators Report, and figure out how philanthropy can support. Philanthropy is not an inexhaustible resource. I think there's a misnomer sometimes that philanthropy can come in and just kind of fix some of the issues that are there. And so what OCG does is try and make sure that funders are looking at how we can use our resources in the best way possible to address the biggest challenges in our community in the most direct and coordinated and strategic way. So we do that for our funders. We have about 50 members, and we also do it for the nonprofit community. So I was so glad to be joined up here with Gregory because, a lot of what they're working on, the funder side is also supporting. So when I'm looking at the report, I'm thinking about a lot of the same things. It's what are the funders doing? What are they addressing that is in line with these issues? Are they missing things? Are they going to take the surface information and say, okay, you know what, actually we don't need to put money into this area? Or are they going to use the data to go underneath that and say, okay, this is where the gaps are. We see that there are wonderful numbers in some areas of graduation. But then if you disaggregate that data, what does it tell us about certain populations in our community? And how can we use the limited philanthropic dollars we have to directly invest in those that need it the most? So when I'm looking at the data, I'm kind of thinking, how can we encourage and educate philanthropy to not take that initial kind of shiny picture of, oh, great, things are good, but figure out, okay, so this area is good. These are the opportunities for us. That's what this report is. These are the opportunities that we see that we can use in the future. And I love what you said about, Orange County being just small enough, but also big enough. Orange County Grantmakers actually came into existence almost 20 years ago when a small group of funders came together, known as the OC Funders Roundtable, supported by Charitable Ventures, because LA Philanthropy said, there's nothing going on in Orange County. And the Orange County funders said, excuse me, yes there is, and we have work here. And because we are small, because we know each other, and because we feel like we can get our arms around the problem, we can actually make change happen. So we are continuing to use that model to look at those key areas of affordable housing, of workforce development, of mental health and other issues, but going beneath it. So graduation rates, wonderful, but let's look at who still needs the most support, and the funders who are interested in that area, what can they really target their money to? Affordable housing, that's a huge thing that we're gonna talk about later, and I know we're gonna have a whole other conversation on it in December, but we're not looking at philanthropy to fix all of affordable housing. That's not possible. But what are some of those gap areas? I'm also, fascinated by the report and how we can see what the connections are. We like to call it the social determinants of health, right? And what that is just a fancy way of saying everything is health. Food is health. Housing is health. Your ability to be in a safe environment in your family is health. So trying to make those connection points, using that data to really remind our community, our funders, those in the service area, those in the business space, that there are opportunities for investment that can really get to some of the challenges that we see elevated in the report.
Thank you, Taryn. Jeffrey, what do you find in the report most encouraging and most discouraging?
Well, thank you. And first of all, let's focus in on the population trend, Rick. And you guys need to recognize the fashion trend. It's not about the ties, it's about the socks. Sorry. Catch on. I think as we look at the report, first of all, as Wallace said, we've done this report now for 24 years. And when I went back and looked at some of the prior reports, it's often the same issues. The numbers are changing a bit, but the issues remain the same. And the number one issue here in Orange County, surprise to no one, is housing. And that's why we chose to put the Inside Report as a focus, not just on the fact that we're not building enough housing, but what are the issues around that? And what is it that we need to do from a regional standpoint, understanding a lot of the restrictions that are getting put on us from a state standpoint in being able to build the housing that we need. Nate talked about the wonderful construction that they have going on Jamboree. City of Hope building a whole new medical center. Other expansions that are happening. Orange County is the healthcare capital of the nation. And as they grow, they're going to need employees. So our focus at the council is looking at, obviously, the desire to grow the economy, but wanting to grow the economy in a way that preserves this high quality of life that makes Orange County so special. And to do that, we have to think about our workforce, not just developing the workforce, but also being able to retain that workforce. We need to look at housing, again, our number one issue, and what are the restrictions that are preventing us from being able to build the housing. He brings all these jobs to Orange County. Where are they going to live? And we need to be thinking about that. And housing draws into the issues that my two friends here next to me on the stage were talking about, as it addresses our social issues. It's really the central thing. And the third one is infrastructure, and making sure that Orange County, being the unique region that it is, has the proper infrastructure that we need to grow. So as we look at this report and we think about a lot of the trends, I think the first alarming thing to me is the issues are the same. And it's great to have this awareness of the numbers, and we will continue to emphasize these numbers in the work that we do, but it's time that we really get to the core of the issues, and the first issue, in our opinion, is housing.
And let me say, I don't think it is housing, okay? Because as I was looking at that chart, the first thing I saw, I was thinking, well, where's the affordable housing? It's in Riverside, and it's in San Bernardino counties. That is Orange County's affordable housing. We may not like the fact that people are commuting distances, but that's the affordable housing. Density, or the amount of people per unit hasn't changed. It's staying about the same. We're not adding population. We're still building 6,000 to 10,000 units a year. So, I don't understand the focus on, and the affordability factors are not going to change. The things in California and the high interest rates are things beyond the control of the Business Council or anybody else. So what, should we just stop wringing our hands about housing affordability because it is what it is?
No, we can't, because as was pointed out earlier, we have all different elements of our population, and Orange County is for everybody. It's not just for the ones that are qualified to be able to afford to get housing. Nate, how would you feel about 80% of your new staff having to drive in from Corona or Riverside or Moreno Valley? That's not how we build a productive economy. Orange County is its own economic base. And as its own economic base, it needs to have the housing that will be sufficient for the workforce that we need. And it is a big issue that's driving a number of our social issues, And clearly, the investment continues. So we're finding opportunity from an economic perspective in Orange County. We have more people commuting into Orange County to go to work than going out. We are the economic center. We're not going to turn into a Naples, Florida, and just be retirees, but we're going to have commerce. And to have commerce, we need housing.
Okay, as you said, thank you very much for that applause.
They were clapping for me, Rick, not for you.
Yes, I'm well aware of that. As you say, the issues remain the same, but one issue that hasn't remained the same, it's changed, is we're losing population. As Wallace said, 3 years in a row. That never happened. I mean, if you look at Orange County since the 60s, spectacular population growth. And now, not so, and California is losing jobs. So let's start with you, Nate. Is the loss of people, the exodus of people from California a concern to you? And do you have any suggestions on what we might do about it?
Well, I have an interesting perspective because I'm a California native who moved to New York, and then I lived there for a good decade. Then I moved to Arizona for about 5 years, and I moved to Orange County a year and a half ago. So in Arizona, I had double the square footage for more than half the cost, right? So very different kind of perspective. So yeah, it has been a little bit of a change for me, and I can definitely see why a lot of people are moving to more quote affordable areas. But I think what Orange County certainly has to offer, and much of the state of California, is that compared to Arizona, right, the investment that we have in education, in healthcare, right, in creating diverse experiences for all of our population, but especially for our young people, right? There's no place like Orange County. I mean, this is the place to be. Now, in terms of, is it concerning for me? Yeah. Jeff was mentioning our new hospital. Our new hospital, I have to hire 1,200 people in the next year. 1,200 people, right? And by the way, City of Hope probably has to hire several hundred people. And Hogue and Memorial Care and everybody else, right? And so, yes, we need to bring in physicians, but even a physician starting off at a $250,000 a year salary, that's difficult for them, let alone for the nurses that are making $100K, right? Where are they going to be able to live? And a lot of these folks, by the way, they have jobs that require them to put significant hours, 12-hour shifts, right? You have to be on call. You're a cath lab nurse, right? You're good and you work in a cath lab team. Call requirements are significant. And sometimes if you're a physician, you have to be in a place within 30 minutes, right? Well, you can't live in Riverside, right? If you need to be here within 30 minutes. And so, these are all very significant issues for us. And so we are so concerned about, I think, the affordable housing aspect of things, and also just making sure that we have the population to be able to serve all this growth.
So how's it going with the hiring? You're having 1,200 people. Are some of them been hired? Where are they finding their places to live? And are you having trouble hiring people?
Absolutely, yes. We absolutely have trouble hiring folks for the cost. And so that's why, we've had to do significant, what ends up happening is that, market adjustments are a real thing, right? And so we survey the market, we raise, what we pay our employees, and as we raise it, when you are 8,500 employees, right, and in a large healthcare institution, what ends up happening is we become the market rate. And then so everybody else has to adjust as well. And so it certainly becomes challenging. So there's constantly this race. And I think that I will speak from the University of California Irvine perspective. We are a very financially strong organization, right? We have, it's public record, 180 days cash on hand, right? We are very strong. But many healthcare institutions in Orange County, many hospitals, community hospitals especially, right? They are barely getting by, right? I think the national margin, right, for a hospital is -1%. It's probably worse in the state of California. On top of that, everybody has to do things like get in seismic standards that by 2030 we have to invest in. And for the average hospital, that's going to be $100 million, right? So all these factors are quite significant and quite concerning for So we have a lot of work to do.
So I just want to drill down again. 1,200 people here.
Yes, all right.
And are they finding places in Irvine and elsewhere to live, or are you finding out we can't hire you? Yeah. We have a housing problem and there's nowhere for you to live.
So I think we're doing relatively well hiring just because of what we can offer as a UC with our pay, with also many of our staff are represented as well, so they do very well. I'm concerned, but I am still concerned about our hiring, but I'm really concerned about these community hospitals, these clinics, these other places that really can't pay those type of salaries. How are they going to be able to get the critical staff that they need? So yeah, I think it's quite concerning.
Okay, so Gregory, housing costs or population loss, take your pick which one you'd like to talk about and how you see it impacting Orange County.
If I can, I want to tackle a little bit of both. It's a great concern. I was reading something recently that there are only 4 major cities in the country where owning a house is cheaper than renting. It's Cleveland, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Houston. So that means that the rest of the major cities across the country is cheaper to rent than it is to purchase a house. Where for many decades, I know growing up for me, I was always told that it's cheaper to own a house versus just putting money out into a rental property. But those things are reversed. So I'm not sure what to tell my children now. And so that's the challenge. And I said, and I like Jeff's answer. I don't have his voice, but I like his answer. Around how important housing is because it's not just housing. To tackle the problem, you have to look at livable wages. You have to look at healthcare. There's so many things you have to look at beyond. None of the issues are isolated to that one issue. And so, for instance, our organization, as it relates to livable wage, 2 years ago, we decided to ensure that every employee in our organization was making a livable wage. Now, on the surface, that sounds like no big deal. No big deal at all. For us, it hit our budget. It was a big hit to our budget. But it made it worth it because when I walked around the organization and I heard the stories of a single mom who says, I no longer have to work 2 jobs, and I can be home with my children and get home from school, while she was telling me that in tears, worth it. Or the young father who's been married 2 years, the young father and husband who can now move out of his parents' house with his wife and his 2-year-old son because he's now making a livable wage. So we have to look beyond just the one, because none of the issues are isolated to just that one issue. It's full circle. And the only way we're going to tackle it is by creating an ecosystem that's going to include, obviously, the business and private sector. It's going to include government, and that the will of the government to really push public policy to make change. It's going to be service providers and other entities that's going to be, but we have to create the right ecosystem as a unit. I thought, and I had this conversation with someone right before we started, I thought my numbers in 2019 were high in terms of the number of people we were serving, how much food we were giving out. Then it tripled in 2020. In 2021, it was still high. I thought in 2022, we'll go back to 2019 numbers, and we're still not back at 2019 numbers. So it tells me that the need for what we do, and whether it's food insecurity or housing or whatever it is, that the need for it is still very high, regardless of what the numbers say. And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, in terms of the mass exodus, is that if we don't fix this problem, we're going to continue to have that problem. And when you got 15,000, 20,000 people leaving the county, their money leaves too. So we spend where we live. And so ultimately, I said this earlier, if we don't address the problem, ultimately, we're going to see, remember I said page 3 of my physical? We're going to see more and more of those red spots creep up. We can do nothing, but if we don't do something, the economy is going to take such a hit that at some point it's going to affect all of us, whether we like it.
Taryn, just before you weigh in, Georgie, where are you? How much more time before? 10 more minutes, and then we go to audience questions. 15, all right, so, because I know you guys have lots of questions, and that should also be interesting. So, Taryn, your thoughts on particularly, I guess, the population, that people are leaving California and Orange County?
Yeah, so I also want to kind of note the hiring aspect, because I think one of the things we forget about is, nonprofits, so there's a lot of them in Orange County, and they hire a lot of people. I think one of the things that we kind of forget sometimes is that nonprofits don't have the ability to pay quite as well as, say, UCI, because they are limited in their structure and what they're doing and their services. And yet, nonprofits are relied on so much to provide integral services to our community. So if we're not addressing that issue as well, when we're looking at the overall framework of housing and livable wage and population departure, we're gonna lose services and programs that we didn't even realize we needed until it disappears. And this is one of the things that we really saw when the pandemic hit. Philanthropy was being called in desperation by nonprofits saying, we need so many more staff to all of a sudden serve this community that we didn't know was gonna all of a sudden need us more help. And we don't have the people to do it. We don't have the reserves to be able to do it. So I wanna make sure we're keeping in mind the fact that, being able to provide a living wage and housing, it also is such an issue for those companies and those organizations that are limited in that. The other thing about the population departing is we know that a diverse community is an equitable community and vice versa. As we lose people, especially if we are losing those because they cannot afford to live here, we might be losing some of what makes Orange County so unique. And that is one of my big fears, is that if we start to lose that, we could become the cliche that my husband's family in New Jersey thinks of Orange County, which is the OC. Those of us who live here know that that is not who we are. We are much more than that. We represent such a unique population. We saw those numbers reflected on how the diversity of our community is changing and what that brings here. So I'm really concerned about that for a number of reasons. Obviously, yes, the workforce, but also just the soul that that brings to Orange County.
Any thoughts, Taryn, on what we might do to reverse that?
Really giving me the hard one, huh? Sure, let me just spitful the problem, no problem. I think one of the things that we look at in philanthropy is starting very, very at the beginning, right? We say upstream. So what can we do not to address the immediate problem, which is needing more housing, but what can we do to address some of the systemic changes and the roots of systemic inequity that are many more stages above and beyond that. So policy, looking at changes like Gregory was saying, looking at some of those policy changes from county and government to make housing easier to be here, to start with our youth and to be investing in workforce development programs that are going to ensure the youth who live here are prepared and able to access the jobs that will get them the UCI job, right? That if they want it, it will allow them to get the high-paying job and be prepared for the jobs that are going to allow them to stay here. So I think it's not, you can't just say it's affordable housing, we need to build more housing. It's what are all the things behind that, and are we making sure that the kids who are coming up are going to be able to access that housing if it's built?
Taryn, I'll ask, go ahead, you had something you wanted to say, Jim.
Well, I think these are all excellent points. But let's start with the good news. We have a very strong, robust economy in Orange County. And we are very fortunate that we have that. Many other regions of the country, and yes, maybe in those regions you can buy a house cheaper than you can rent, but that's for a reason, right? We have robust investment that is happening in Orange County. And we need to recognize that as a benefit and leverage it appropriately so that we can bring the proper services throughout the county that we need, as my friends here on the stage pointed out. I know that next month OC Forum is going to focus a lot on housing, and we don't want to take a lot of that thunder away. And obviously I've said that is my key issue that I'm concerned about. The thing that we center in on at the Business Council is affordability index. And there are 3 components to the affordability index. The first one is income. We're hitting that. We're doing good. We're providing opportunities. As Nate pointed out, we have more job opportunities coming. We We need to make sure that our population is properly educated and properly trained to fill those jobs, but the good news is the income side is strong. The interest rates, we have no control over, and obviously they have changed significantly. Rates have more than doubled, which means your payments have gone up significantly. A big part of the affordability index. But then the third part is supply. And if I think about the top 3 issues in housing in Orange County today, those 3 issues are supply, supply, and supply. That is where we need to focus. And the income, as strong as our income is, having limited supply is basic economics, folks. If you don't have the supply, the costs are going to be higher and it impacts that affordability index. And that's the one area that we have the most control that we need to focus on. Quick side note, my kids grew up in Orange County and they've now moved to Nevada because of affordability. And I said, come on guys, but you know, I'm at the business council now. Not a good example for me. And my son said, Dad, to live in Orange County, you gotta have a regular job, a night job, and a side hustle. We'd rather live in Las Vegas. And I said, that's fine, drop the side hustle as long as you're in Las Vegas. That, Rick, is the key issue that drives a lot of the things that you see through this report. And the structure of the report, as we've laid it out, we start with the economy, right? We start with that base that we have to work with, which is our economy. And when we start talking about population decline, particularly across California, you know, relative to other regions, we're doing okay in retaining population, but it is a big thing that I worry about because it's not just the numbers, but it's what's within those numbers, because we are losing strong income producing people to other regions of the country, and we're going to need those people to be able to staff these hospitals and other businesses that are growing. And the good news is, folks, we got tremendous investment happening in Orange County. I see my good buddy Matthew back there, OCBC. How many regions in the country would give anything for OCBC? By the way, I love the way the Ducks are playing so far, Matthew. But that helps our economy too. But so many good things happening in Orange County. So I think our focus needs to be on how we can leverage the strength of this economy to be able to address these issues and recognize, thank God, we don't have to be fighting some of the economic struggles that other regions of the state are dealing with right now. I won't bring up San Francisco.
Let me add to the good news that you're talking about. I think there's been some allusions to it, but the innovation in Orange County, the energy, the innovation, look at the companies and what's going on in Orange County in the business sector. I just wrote a couple. Med tech is huge, and Nate's an example of that, but that's huge, the med tech sector. Electric vehicles. And people that drive, everyone's driving a Tesla or Rivian, you see them everywhere. High-tech defense, there's a lot of that. Software solutions for various things. There's a company in Orange County, Over Air Inc., that is developing flying taxis. They're working with Los Angeles, so we'll have flying taxis for the Olympics in 28. I mean, the Jetsons have arrived. And that's going on here in Orange County. And so that's, you know, there was in just plug the Business Journal. In the Business Journal this week, besides the flying taxis, there's a story, a company called NKGen Biotech. They're in clinical trials for a novel Alzheimer's treatment. It's founded by a South Korean who's run a company in South Korea for over 20 years. CEO is a Korean American who is a distinguished researcher with degrees from University of Chicago. And so Peter Brennan, the reporter, asked this guy, well, why are you in Orange County? I mean, you know, what reason are you guys in Orange County? He said it's a great place to have a practice. It's a skilled workforce, and they can scale up much more quickly than they could in South Korea or most other places. Now, are they going to make it? Who knows? I mean, they just went public. They raised $20 million. But as you know, these things sometimes promising technologies don't work out. They've got financial challenges. But Orange County's loaded with companies like this. And you don't have to have a winner every time. You know, you hit a few of these, and you have a growing economy. So that's also really an exciting part. Having said that,
no, I think you just further emphasized my point. And what we focus on in the council is Okay, great. We have all of this wonderful investment. We're going to continue to do everything we can to draw businesses like that to Orange County, but we also have to perform, right? We have to be able to provide the workforce that they need. It's not just the ones you mentioned. Look at the companies that have recently moved to Orange County. Virgin Galactic moved into Orange County. Coca-Cola consolidated their West Coast headquarters into Irvine, right? We're seeing Chipotle move to Orange County. So this is an attractive market. We can look at ourselves, and I think it's important that we acknowledge our weaknesses and address them, but let's not lose sight of the fact that we do have the strong economy, which is going to need that adequate workforce. So at the council, we're very focused on how we can bring our population areas, particularly some of our lower income communities, how can we take these career paths out to these students, show them these opportunities are here, and work with our partners in education to get them properly educated, properly trained, so that now they do see that there's an opportunity to be here in Orange County. You can make a six-figure income in Orange County and not have a college degree. Let's not assume every kid is going to go on and get a four-year degree in college. And let's look at some of our vocational training. Our community colleges are doing a great job. So we're working with all of our educational partners, as well as our friends in the nonprofit world, to find the ways that we can leverage this great investment and booming business economy to provide the opportunities throughout Orange County, which will then go to help towards equality. And all of you, like me, that are very concerned about equality, there is nowhere that you will see a greater division in equality than in housing. And Wallace showed you some of those statistics. They are embarrassing. Our statistics are worse than the 60s when it was intentional. So having the strong economy is the basis, and working with nonprofits and education and business all coming together to provide those opportunities throughout the county will be the key to addressing these issues we're talking about. And again, I have to say it, they all need a place to live, and Rick, I want them to live in Orange County.
So let me bring up an elephant in the room, which is state government. Orange County can try to do as much as it wants. It's part of California, okay? And the reality is, and again, yes, companies consolidating in Orange County, things like that. Just talked to somebody who's moving their company. They didn't give the reason they were moving their headquarters, or they didn't publicly say it, but it's because of the laws of California passed, which have been challenged in court and are on appeal right now, for diversity of boards. Now, everybody loves that. It's a great idea. We want diversity on our corporate boards, okay? But, and there's been 2 laws passed to make that happen. They've been challenged, overturned as unconstitutional. And so, but companies see this and they say, oh my God, we don't want to deal with this. And they leave. And how big a problem is the state?
I was trying to focus on the good news, right? And then you brought Sacramento into it. It's a big challenge that we have, and there's a lot of things here that I could address that you're opening up. And let's just, while we're talking about housing, in the last 4 years, we have added over $120,000 per door to the cost of building a house in California. $120,000. Okay, affordability is a relative term. To some people, that $120,000 just in increased regulatory cost is the affordable line. So we have to do things at the state level, and we could go on in terms of some of that restriction that comes into play when it plays into housing. The other thing, when you talked about some of the laws and regulations, again, people are still choosing to invest here, so there is a reason. We have a very solid population base. We have a very educated population base, particularly here in Orange County. Wallace pointed that out in some of his data points. But it's where I worry about it is as we see these businesses expanding. When I started my bank, our intention was to be a regional, small business focused bank in our area. Within 6 months, we became a multi-state bank. Why? Because one of my clients wanted to expand, and he was having a hard time with the city, and he found an opportunity in Yuma, Arizona. Next thing I knew, I'm financing commercial property in Yuma, Arizona. But it was what he had to do to survive. So it is an issue. It's something that we could go on and on about the fact that, when's the last time we passed a law in California that made it easier to do business in California? It's been a long time. So there's definitely a lot of work we have to do.
Okay, this is a, yeah, yes.
I just want to add a little bit to this. So I used to be a county legislator in New York. These affordability and zoning laws and all these other things were very close to my heart. And one of the things that we always would talk about is just how really it's a balance, right? You need to have, yes, you need to have regulations because regulations, right, are important for the health and safety of our communities. But over-regulation can diminish business and create problems as well. So that balance is always something that's necessary. And I think Orange County does such a good job with at least the local level trying to find that balance. But I want to just say that I think we hear a lot in the news about people leaving California because of the business environment. But I think there's a lot of stories like whether with Coke and others that are coming here, they do it. And why do they do it when the cost of doing business is much higher? It's because of the quality of life. And I'll tell you, I have a son. He's severely autistic. We were living in Chandler, Arizona, which is actually a very good community in Arizona, right? We looked at the landscape for him, right, and not just from the public school system, which was, by the way, miserable for him. If you were to do it, our only option was a charter school in downtown Phoenix, 45 minutes away, right? That would be able to give him the services he needed. But then on top of that, right, in terms of the nonprofit organizations that are around, right, the quality level just wasn't there. And so that was actually our big motivation on why I hit the job board, right, and said, I need to look for a different place to live. And Orange County, moving to Irvine, California, was the place and it's made a huge difference for my son. Right? So I want to highlight that. But I also want to just say one other thing, which is that I think so much that we think about the state and federal government, right? But so many things, as Greg talks about, it's at the smaller local levels. And I think that, one of the things that we all can do is not be NIMBYs, right, but be YIMBYs, right? So in other words, instead of not in my backyard, yes in my backyard. Because oftentimes what happens when you're a local elected official is that the person that votes consistently tend to be the people, right, that don't want to have a lot of development. They like the way things are, and they're motivated to vote. I'm just making generalizations, right? But the people that often are very pro-affordable housing, that want to see growth in their community, they're not always the most reliable voters, right? So the elected officials listen to who's the reliable voter. So what we need is everybody in this room, and we need people in our communities to vote, but also to make clear to elected officials that building affordable housing and growth, right, that's sustainable, community-minded, is so crucial for us, and that's what Wake's for.
Jeff, will you get the last word, and then we'll go to the audience.
Yeah, thank God. Yes, absolutely, right? And what we need is incentive for cities to build as opposed to these sticks. RENA is a failure, and it doesn't build anything, and we need incentives for cities to build to make that happen.
Terrific. Okay, well, let's start the questions now. And Wallace, why don't you come back up and
come bail me out, Wallace.
Yes, because I'm sure there might be questions that are good for you. And why don't I give you this, and I'll just get out of the way. Sure. And Georgie, who's easy to spot, you'll run around the room.
Yeah, hello, my name is Henry Mendoza. I'm a board member here with this organization, so thank you all for coming. But I keep listening about housing, and I've been out there trying to hire, I'm a CPA, I have a CPA firm, and I've had to go out of the area, and I've hired people virtually. So I don't know how that's taken into consideration in the study. I keep thinking about that. How does that offset? We keep talking about demand. They're not demanding. There's somebody in Arizona and somebody in Colorado and Texas that works for you part-time, but they work for you. So, I mean, you do what you have to do, and it's working. So, I mean, is that taken into consideration in the numbers? Because, we keep talking about demand. They're not demanding anything. So, just a question.
Yeah, that's a great question, I think. I think that works probably in some industries, and then other industries like healthcare is a great example. But although there's telehealth and virtual stuff, I think it doesn't work nearly as well in first responders. But yeah, we do take a look at that. That probably is a growing trend since COVID hit, and people experimented with that, and maybe that's a wave of the future. But I don't think we want to just rely on that probably. I think let's try to fix the issue, the underlying issue. Yeah, some people in some occupations and industries can live anywhere, but that's not the case, I think, for most.
It's actually an aspect that gives us an advantage in Orange County because of our quality of life here. I'm on the board of a data management company in the Midwest. We used to hire all of our people there right around Wichita, pretty low cost base. Now those people can find jobs in Orange County and work from there. So those regions are having a much tougher time with that, and I think it actually gives us a natural advantage here in Orange County.
So many companies offer pretty good benefits packages, 401k matching, and really good health care. Is it common for companies to offer housing stipends or differentials?
So we have a couple of examples of that here in Orange County. UCI being the first one that comes to mind with the campus housing program that they offer that is a great incentive for them to be able to recruit people. Some of our private companies in the area, Disney as an example, has been making direct investments into affordable housing, working with partners like Jamboree Housing to be able to do that. But that could be an essential part of what we need to do to be able to not just attract people to come to Orange County, but to also retain them.
Well, if you don't mind, if you want to stay private, fine, but please give your name and who you're with. Thank you.
Matt Hicks with OCBC. More personal question. I have young kids with a wife who just got back in the workforce. I think that's a big challenge is the need for dual income for affordability. And Wallace, any observations around childcare, daycare, and participation in the labor force in Orange County?
Absolutely. In First Five, OC has been doing some phenomenal work, and Tiffany and Christina are here today. Yes, we just don't have enough childcare supply, and there's a huge amount of demand. Therefore, it's very expensive for most people. We don't even have the workforce kind of behind it, so it's a multi-dimensional problem. But I think First Five is doing some amazing work, and especially one thing I'm helping them out with is looking at putting childcare centers in affordable housing projects, which I think is a really good model. And then also we're looking at how cities can be helpful. Oftentimes when somebody wants to open up a childcare facility, they go through the planning department and there are some roadblocks. And so we are looking at doing a toolkit that will have cities help on the issue rather than getting in the way. So, and then there's one last thing. There's some amazing work being done by Cielo, a nonprofit, the SPDC, and other partners, First Five as well, Orange County Community Foundation, where they are training new people to get into the field and become entrepreneurs or workforce in that area. So some, I think, really exciting things there. So that's a great question, Matt.
I'll just add to that as well. So at Orange County Grantmakers, we have a number of funders who are very invested and interested in this space, including our members right here, the Orange County Community Foundation and First Five, coming together from the philanthropic standpoint to address that challenge and to try and think kind of outside the box about how funders can support some of the gap areas and needs in the childcare space.
Big need.
Quick question, or no, Jeff, for you. Fun fact, 112 Californians are moving to Clark County every month. At this rate, Clark County will have the population of Orange County by 2050. So we should probably open an OCBC office in Henderson.
I wonder where they're going to get all the water.
Yeah, well, it doesn't seem to be a problem yet. Question really, and I was inspired because Gregory's great comment about we're large enough to matter and small enough to get things done. Fascinating to me because I just heard a presentation at the Southern California Association of Governments by Karen Bass trying to explain her approach to homelessness, and frankly their numbers keep growing. But Orange County is so unique. We have no political center. We're required with 34 mayors that all think that they're kings and queens of their own fiefdom, businesses that take a very personal interest, the CEOs, in the economic success of this county, nonprofits that are brilliant in their strategic approach. What is it about our DNA in Orange County? We're not LA. Our numbers are so great compared to LA, Ventura, other counties. What is it about Orange County, this unique DNA, that I can look at Sue Parks and go, oh my gosh, her leadership, we actually, working with the county, businesses, nonprofits, collaboration, we actually helped reduce homelessness in Orange County. And no other that I'm aware of county can say that. So how can we take this model and maybe elevate it to have lessons for other areas to succeed and use them as well in all of the issues that you address?
I was going to start by saying we like each other. Honestly, I think that's one of the biggest opportunities that we have here. You know, we, as I mentioned, OCG is a convener, and a lot of what we do is bringing people together. And I think one of the most unique things about our community is that when folks come together, they know each other, they like each other, and they're, for the most part, willing to collaborate. And so those authentic relationships at the base of so much of what happens here in Orange County is what allows us to actually make things happen.
Yeah, I was going to say similar things is that people care, and I realized that during the pandemic. I mean, when March 2020 hit, the number of calls, I didn't have to reach out. The number of calls that I got who wanted to help, and because we saw people who had a mortgage and a Mercedes car payment, looking for a food box. And so the number of people who cared about what was going on in the community was really important. I think one aspect that that goes along with that is the partnership with the business community and the philanthropic community all come together. And I think, and I said it earlier, I think that's the model that works. When the business community shows up, you got the private sector, you got government, you got UCI and the financial industry, you got all these things coming together. That's how you move the needle for change. Is when everybody shows up, because everybody in the community matters. One thing that we didn't talk about much or at all is the power of small businesses. I saw the report, I don't remember the number, but the number of small businesses here, the number of women-owned businesses, the number of minority-owned businesses, we also got to take care of them as part of the community to really move the needle on the things we want to do to really change the economy here. So I go back to what she said earlier. We like each other.
And I'll just add, I think having 34 cities is an advantage. And having worked in a smaller city in LA County and being the tail of the dog, it was miserable. But here, having the 34 unique cities that take their own approach, I see it as an advantage. And I think it plays out exactly what you asked us.
I know we have Bob Whalen here, councilman, and sometimes and former mayor of Laguna Beach. Do you agree it's good to have a lot of little cities and things?
Good to be king.
He said good to be king. Okay, so I didn't hear that. And if any of you don't know who the eloquent questioner was just now, that's Lucy Dunn, who is Jeff's predecessor as CEO of the Business Council. And I understand she taught you everything you know about the business.
We're getting it.
Last question.
Yes, okay. Hi everyone, I'm Naya. I'm with First Five Orange County, but this is more of a personal question. So I have the privilege of being a young professional in the room, 20-somethings, and I also share the same experience of having trouble finding housing in Orange County. And I do work in Orange County, so I would love to not have to commute from home to get in the county, and also have the privilege, I think, of being, I have a definitely affordable income, but still am having this difficulty. And so one thing I did when I was searching for housing here, there's an amazing OC affordable housing. There's a website, you can get a PDF, it's great, and most of it was filled up. It was like 7-year waiting list, and then if you still would be able to qualify, you have to have a kid. I don't have a child, so So that made it even more difficult. And I was like, oh wow, look, Irvine had 2 affordable housing opportunities. One I did not qualify for due to income, and the other one, which I would potentially be able to qualify for, the affordable housing rate for a 1-bedroom was $2,700, and the original rate was $2,900. So when I was like, okay, who can I reach out to talk to? Because how is $2,700, $200 less than the actual cost affordable, and who is it affordable for? And even then, you still have to meet specific income requirements, and so even if someone would be able to qualify for that unit, they probably could barely afford it and would be living paycheck to paycheck. So I'm wondering, are there young professionals at the table when these discussions are happening, and who are setting these rates? Because even then, of course, it's amazing to say, look, we do have these affordable housing units, but I can't even afford it, and I'm still not being able to live in Orange County.
Kind of bringing it right down to reality for the last question.
Supply, supply, supply. And we have one of the statistics that was in the report, I wrote it down when Wallace was going through. Hourly housing wage for a 1-bedroom in Orange County in the last year went from $36.63 an hour to $40.63 an hour, right? That's the reality, and I appreciate you bringing it to life for this group. And everybody come to the OC Forum event next month, because that's going to be the focus, housing and talking about the issues around housing supply, so that people like you not just have an option, but multiple options on where it is that you can live relatively close to where you work. So thank you for that.
If I could jump in real quick, is just going back to your question, just because you can afford it, I mean you can afford it. And here's what I mean by that. If you can't afford the $2,700, you still got to make a decision on whether I pay the rent this month or do I get food? Or can I also afford, proper health care? Or can I afford, if you have a child, can I afford getting Johnny a pair of sneakers for school? And that's the challenge. And even if you can afford it, doesn't mean you can afford it. Because all the other things that kind of go along with it also going to impact you in the long run. Which is why I'm glad we're having this conversation. I'm honored to serve on the OC Forum. We're going to have another housing conversation, I think, next month. But we can do nothing. That's my final comment. And we can be back here next year in the same room, having the same conversation with Jeff. Or we can really create the right ecosystem within the county that's big enough to matter, small enough to make a difference, and we can really come together and create the right ecosystem that next year's conversation is way different than the one we had in 2020 and 2021.
Let's hear it for our panel. Now I'm pleased to turn it over to the maestro of the OC Forum.
Thank you so much, Rick. All right. Hey, what a great program. Let's hear it one more time for our panel. Wallace, Rick, Gregory, Taryn, Jeff. They do a wonderful job. Now, we've been doing this a long time in conjunction with the folks that put out this report. And as you can tell from my hair color, we used to give out copies of the report with paper copies, fell a bunch of trees. Well, we are now in the 21st century. So you all should have received one of these. And this actually has a QR code that you can use to get your own copy of the report. And just in case you doubt, the guy with the gray hair was able to do it. So if I can do it without my kids, everybody in this room can do it. Just trust me. All right, as has been mentioned, our final luncheon event of 2023 is our annual housing program. It is going to take place right here, exactly 1 month from today, Thursday, December 7th at 11:30. For more information or to get some tickets, go to ocforum.org. On your way out, please thank the folks from the Hyatt Regency here. They did a great job with luncheon today. And one last thank you to the Communications Lab folks. We got Ariana, Georgie, Alexandra, and the team. They're the ones that make all this work. Georgie's in the back. You can thank him on the way out. Thank you all for being here. Drive home safe and have a great day. Thank you.